I'm honored to join everybody. I really like John's presentation. A lot of people familiar with my involvement in the past of being a top secret military witness that testified in Washington, D.C. in order to expose illegal secret government operations and release the extraterrestrial technologies. And, being an ex-ABC newsman and, traveling across the United States, trying to bring public awareness, it's pretty obvious the whole system has been corrupted. So in order to change it, sometimes may have to look at something different, like maybe understanding the matrix of reality and some advanced technologies that utilize the power within us. Let's see, let me get my notes here.
Right.
Okay. I'd like to mention, to add and contribute to what John was saying, if you go to thewebmatrix.net and click on Nazi eugenics and big pharma, I've been researching for years, extensive notes on everything that he brought up, and it's important to bring up these disturbing elements that are in our society that makes it very difficult with a corrupted system in order to transform it. So I'm very honored today to share some empowering information that utilizes our powers within us to transform our reality in this matrix that we all share. So I'm going to do a little share screen here. All right. Everybody see that okay?
Yes.
Okay. All right. This is an overview of some of the things we'll cover in this. What is the structure of the matrix, the nature of the matrix, the geometrical nature of the energies of our mind, how the matrix is related to the geometries of quartz crystals and water, and what does this have to do with the resonance of love and beauty? How can we co-creatively participate in creating our reality augmented? Now, the use of a crystal is augmenting the powers that we already have within us. We don't have to use these things. We have these powers within us, but there are certain tools that we could use that augment these powers within us to affect this matrix. And what we've learned from a scientist on Earth and a scientist from another world whose understanding of the matrix is thousands of years more advanced. I'm going to be moving rapidly through a lot of this, and so these are some of the things I'm going to be covering in this presentation on the matrix. Okay, what inspired my research into this? Back in 1977, I had a Kundalini opening experience, an interaction with an extraterrestrial being that had incredible energy and incredible love coming from its eyes, and it projected a sphere in space. And the first thing I noticed was looked like a star tetrahedron, and another geometry formed into that one, another one into that one, and then it went into infinity. And then it turned back into the sphere. And keep in mind, I had no idea what platonic solids were. I didn't have any knowledge of sacred geometry. This was all completely new to me. And what the being was saying, telepathically, basically, was that through love, each of us are all interconnected into this matrix, and that at any particular point in our evolution that we're oscillating on a particular density frequency, you could say, and that we are aware of the densities below, but not of the higher octaves that are higher. In other words, as we move from one frequency density to the next through love, we encompass more of the totality of the sphere. This was all new to me. It was like quite, it put a burning passion in me to try to understand everything I could. And so I sought out a scientist who was IBM's head scientist, Dr. Marcel Vogel, who was working with quartz crystals. And quartz crystals, it seemed to hold a key to understanding what this matrix was. Here he is in his laboratory. I tried to grab every book I could on the subject matter. It left this burning passion in me to try to understand, what is the structure of this matrix? What is this that this being conveyed to me? And quartz crystals and water seem to hold a key to understanding the structure of this matrix as it interfaces with consciousness. Now, a little bit about Marcel. He was IBM senior head scientist for 27 years. He's a prolific inventor, over 140 patents. He created the first magnetic coating used in computer hard drives, created the red and blue phosphors for color television, developed liquid crystal systems that are used on the display you're looking at right now. He was a pioneer in man-plant communications, which led him to the research of the interface of consciousness with quartz crystals and water, which he researched extensively for 17 years. After leaving IBM, he set up a fully equipped laboratory to measure and quantify the science of crystals and developed a method to amplify and cohere the energies of mind by forming a quartz crystal known today as a Vogel cut crystal. The image came to him in a dream in the form of a tree of life to cut the crystal in a dipyramidal form. I helped gather the first huge batch of crystals for the 24 medical doctors he was working with. In this, he was struggling with how to make this more of an effective tool to cohere the energies of mind. And he saw this tree of life in a dream, as many great inventors get, images in dreams. The tree of life, basically the unmanifest coming down through the various densities, I guess you could say, into the manifest. And this was the form that he created the crystal in. He trained dozens of medical doctors, and using this developed technique, utilizing the crystal with breath to alleviate various health issues in the higher energetic fields of the body, and had great success. He was no doubt the first scientist of his caliber to pioneer the understanding of the energies of mind connected with breath, quartz crystals, and water, and most importantly, love. Dr. Marcel Vogel's years of research work fully substantiates the information shared in the future by an extraterrestrial being, Janhani Redion. Marcel, of course, had no idea that the way he cut the crystal in the 52-degree and 60-degree angles created a phase conjunction node within the crystal that just happened to be how cultures in another star system, many thousands of years in advance from us here on Earth, were also forming their crystals for a number of advanced functions. And so we'll be having statements by Marcel referenced. What's incredible is that through my dear friend Elena Danan, who was able to set up the communications to a scientist from a culture that's thousands of years ahead of us, who understands fully the structure of the matrix, how everything discovered scientifically in Marcel's laboratory through and through his experience was validated. Let's see, share screen. So I am very honored to be able to share this information, because I've studied for many years researching the matrix through various means. I studied work with Marcel Vogel in the laboratory, helped set up some of the laboratory equipment, and very familiar with all his work. And then making this contact with a being who, let me introduce who Genhan Eredrian is. He's a Palladian from the planet Era, who's called a star maker, or one who terraforms planets. He's studying these sciences at the University in the Pleiades and has an advanced understanding of the science of the crystals and the holographic matrix of reality. He is the younger brother of Thorhan, a commander in the Galactic Federation of Worlds, and has communicated the following information through a secure military communications device implant through their emissary, Elena Danan. And so there'll be statements by Genhan Eredrian that will be referenced. Now, everybody recognizes that I've been doing a lot of research. So I look for corroborating data points with information. I don't just accept information unless there's a lot of corroborating information that points to an indication that, you know, there's something valid here. So Elena's contact through Thorhan is not only corroborating with matching Dr. Marcel's work perfectly, but through a long series of corroborations that only someone with a genuine contact could provide. To qualify the source of information I'm sharing today, since today we're being exposed to a number of disinformation elements that have infiltrated for the purpose to cause confusion that hides the truth, the corroborating evidence of why I believe this information about the matrix from Genhan is genuine is a number of corroborating elements that I've been taking note of that and my fellow research associate, Dr. Michael Sala, who's been researching extensively, you know, the subject of exopolitics. Here's a number of points that I found that nobody else can make claim to. Thorhan reveals the full text of the Prime Directive. Michael Sala finds a book that Elena had no idea existed, that the wording matched almost exactly. The Galactic Federation of Worlds worked with Gene Roddenberry to actually put out the Star Trek series that put out the idea of the warp drives, teleportation, to seed the collective mind, as working with the U.S. Navy. You know, that goes into a whole history. And Thorhan reveals that there's a large arc in the Atlantic Ocean. Dr. Sala's military witness, JP, shortly after reports his mission going down to that Atlantic arc. And then Thorhan reveals there's meetings on Ganymede, one of the moons of Jupiter. Again, JP later reports going on a mission to Ganymede and reported by support personnel. And then Thorhan says to watch activity on Neptune, soon to be revealed. Well, what happens a week later? All the science publications are talking about this huge red abnormality on Neptune. You know, you can't make this stuff up. And here's a profound one. Elena, in her book, A Gift from the Stars, where she detailed 110 different extraterrestrial races and the planets they inhabit, she showed an illustration that Proxima Centauri system has 3 big uninhabited planets, plus a few planetoids. This was completely unknown. But in February this year, NASA discovered, exactly as Elena described, a 3rd planet in the Proxima Centauri system. So there's no way you would know this information unless you had actual insight. And the Dark Fleet, which was, you know, the Nazi fraction that developed their secret space program, evacuated from Antarctica. An employee at the McMurdo base down in Antarctica, where I was going to work for a year in solitary with a radio station there. Elena's information about the Dark Fleet evacuating, handing it over base to the Chinese, he saw many Germans leaving and Chinese arriving. Jean-Charles, my dear friend, who's also one of the people involved in the Solar Warden program, has meetings on the Excelsior, the mothership, and they both independently describe exactly the experience on board, as well as going to the Antarctica Arc near Lake Vostok, And then the Galactic Confederation, rather, in our solar system, ISS, the International Space Station camera shows dozens of spacecraft coming in. And now we have a huge fleet of the Galactic Confederation ships that are parked behind Jupiter. And now the James Webb Space Telescope is seeing these unusual abnormalities coming in. So I've not seen corroborating information like this coming from any other individuals who claim inside information that's happening in our solar system. So with that qualified, I'm honored to share some of the following insights provided by Jenhan Yedrian. So I'm going to jump to the bottom of my long list here. And what I want to do is share some of the statements by Jenhan, and then I would like to go over in detail some of the corroborating research by Dr. Marcel Vogel and in science in general that all completely corroborate with each other. And so I'm going to cover some of these statements. Go down here. Oh, this is long notes and graphics on much of this. Okay, here we are. Okay, these are the new insights over the decades and recent exchanges with Jenhan has given following insights into the nature of the matrix. Credit for this information goes to Elena Danan for providing these communications, or else this would not be possible. The frequency of love is the connecting pulse between all living things in the universe, even through dimensional planes. Love is the universal bridge. The universe tends toward perfection, and this is indicated in the technology of the med beds where they repair and it moves toward perfection naturally because that's the way the universe is designed. I love this statement. Dissonance cannot attune to an ordered state of geometrical resonance. You can see that in Dr. Emoto's work where it will not take form if it's a hateful, dark thought, only gratitude, love, and takes form in the ordered state of geometrical resonance. Tetrahedral geometry is one of the main frequency keys used to build worlds and life forms. Tetrahedral fractal geometry is the secret of the universe. As we'll find out as we go into this, that is the core secret, is this tetrahedral fractal geometry that creates the entire matrix. Love is a complex holographic structure, but from the same fractal core pattern, fractal formula as water. Crystal is a derivative geometrical pattern from water and love, but built on the same core formula. This is why they all interface naturally. Crystals exist in different densities at the same time. They are natural bridges. So when you intend love into a crystal, you activate its transcending capacity. In other words, love allows it to move forward into the higher dimensions without dissonance, because love is at the core of the whole structure of the matrix. As that being conveyed to me back in 1977, which, by the way, Marcel Vogel was having a Kundalini opening experience. I found out just this year through the secretary of the laboratory on a sacred mountain in India. And I had no idea that was happening. And so we were both having this Kundalini opening experience about all this technology back in 1977. Anyway, the Vogel cut, as you name them, are a more surgical tool to operate into the fabric, space-time, and universal consciousness. And we'll go into why that is. Gamma brainwaves open the vortices in a person's mind and allow anything becomes possible. Gamma is the preferred method to get into in order to operate and affect the matrix. Breath carries memories and thoughts. It also carries the energy of a being, not only the encoding of its vehicle DNA, but as well as the encoding of the soul. There is a vortex singularity of the crystal. Focus your thought and energy just there, and you may project your consciousness to anywhere you wish in this universe and other universes, to other densities, other dimensions. Anything is accessible in space, dimension, and time. The crystal will bridge the new pattern with the existing ones. And if the impulse is strong enough, the new pattern will force itself onto the old, and the old will morph into the new. There are three types of holographic geometry: atomic, energetic, and photonic. These three arrangements create each in their domain a hologramic structure. All three generate a specific frequency that will resonate either through matter, energy, or light. The brainwaves emitted by all living creatures on this planet are in inner resonance with the ionospheric shell, in other words, known as the Schumann resonance. And I'll go into that more deeply. If the ionospheric resonance shall change, all life on the planet would be affected. All is inner resonant. One tingle on the web ripples to the other side at a particle level. One affects the other. When your consciousness evolves, the frequency of your planet raises. That is how the inhabitants of a world can shift the density of their planet by themselves, by the simple power of their minds. And these are derived from Jen Han's statement. I thought they were important as well. What you want to compress in the crystal phase conjunction node area for the singularity point in the vortex center for the maximum piezoelectric effect. We'll go into that in more depth. This isn't maybe making sense at this point, but we'll. Quick, sharp pressures, physical or electronic. Piezoelectric means, you can use electric or physical pressure, and it has a response on the lattice structure. Will stimulate the singularity and pierce through the hologram. You can then use a crystal as a tool to modify the hologram of the matrix. When a thought is coupled with the frequency of love, it has a transcending ability to transfer into the higher densities without dissonance. The quartz crystals and the blood of our bodies, created on the planet Terra, are in resonance with Terra's planetary matrix, which allows us to affect that matrix. In other words, you were born on Mars and you got a crystal on Mars. It's not going to affect Terra. It'll affect Mars or any other planet. Each planet has its own resonance, and the bodies that we inhabit have the resonance with the planetary matrix that it's born in. The higher frequency density, the higher in frequency density, the more it resonates with love. Higher density beings are more in alignment with the frequency of love, which is a really reassuring thing to know. When you have other beings that are operating in higher density, they're more in alignment with love, which is a good thing. The beings operating at a higher density can perceive those in a lower density, but the lower density beings cannot perceive those in a higher density. This is what that being shared with me back in 1977. The breath pulse can effectively transfer information into the matrix. This is what both Dr. Marcel Vogel discovered in his work with plant communication and crystals, and what Jen Han confirmed. Love, quartz crystals, and water all directly resonate with source. In other words, we all come from source. Okay, so now with those thoughts seated into your mind, I'm going to elaborate into each one of those and see how we're doing on time. Okay, moving along quickly here. I got a lot of information to share and cover. Okay, go back up here. Okay, back to share screen. Okay, I'm going to move through this kind of rapidly. There's a lot of stuff to cover here. what inspired it. Went over Dr. Marcel Vogel, which, by the way, I drove up in the middle of a storm all the way to his home, knocked on his door. The doctor was sitting on the couch, turned off the lights, played classical music for about a half an hour. A woman came to the door with the daughter because he knew he was working with these medical doctors. Her daughter had this tumor that was sticking out about a half an inch off of her ankle. And in front of the doctor and myself sitting on the couch, we watched as they used the procedure with breath and the crystal, and it dematerialized. Actually physically went out of this dimension. It dematerialized it in front of both of our eyes, and that left a lasting impression on me. Okay. I didn't know any of this in 1977, but and this is common knowledge to most high school kids and things, but the platonic solids do nest within each other and they go into infinity. This matrix that we are in, it is tetrahedral, and this tetrahedral matrix does fit all these platonic solids within this matrix structure. It's the evolution of that. Nassim Haramein, the physicist who I met with back in 2001, confirmed some of the knowledge that I shared with him. On the 64 tetrahedral grid, when you put it in 2D and project it, it forms the flower of life pattern. And this is tetrahedrons that have formed together, 64 of them, that matter forms within. And our ET friends are giving us crop circles to give us some hints. Jenhan says, tetrahedral geometry is one of the frequency keys used to build worlds. Tetrahedral fractal geometry is a secret of the universe. And when you look at all the different planets and the sun, they all have this tetrahedral geometry. You have at 19.47 to be exact, these points of the star tetrahedron are on the sunspots. You have Mars, Olympus Mound, you have Venus, the volcanoes, you have Earth, Hawaiian Islands, for example, and the Great Pyramid, Jupiter, the Great Red Spot, Neptune, the Great Dark Spot. And so it's showing that there's geometry within all spherical bodies. And the Russians discovered that there is a isosahedral and a dodecahedral grid all over our planet. So you have this geometry that's happening within the structuring of the spherical bodies in our solar system. Not only that, but the planetary orbits. You have Mercury as an octahedron, you have Venus, Mars, Saturn, Jupiter. They all have these platonic solid orbits that are based on this sacred geometry. Kepler drew a model of this. Nassim Haramein did a paper, which he got an award for, on the Schwarzschild proton. They found that the fractal scaling from a proton to the size of the entire universe, they found that there's this fractal scaling that showing that it goes into infinity in both directions, and it's fractally related from the smallest little proton to our entire galaxy. Oscillations create geometric forms within the matrix. Max Planck, the father of quantum theory, said, all matter originates and exists by virtue of force which brings the particle of an atom into vibration and holds this most minute solar system of the atom together. We must assume behind this force the existence of a conscious intelligence mind. This mind is the matrix of all matter. And of course, everyone's familiar with this statement by Tesla. If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of frequency, energy, vibration, because there's nothing solid. Everything is oscillating. And these oscillating patterns, such as this example here, is the standing wave forms of these patterns interacting give the illusion of solidity. So it's like the nature of everything is holographic, and it's based on these oscillations. And the entire Platonic solids are in the nucleus of the atom, and they even found that the complete periodic table of elements is based on a tetrahedral structure. The geometries of mind interface with the matrix. Jenhan says, everything in the created universe is constructed on a geometrical holographic structure. The energies of mind. He's responding to questions I'm putting forth to him. I like it as worded as such because there is a difference between this and the electrical brainwaves. The energies of mind are fractals of consciousness solidified in a way, or shall I say, that have taken form as a geometrical manifestation. A thought creates an electrical projection. An energy thought reshapes the holographic geometrical formula of reality. It rearranges the micro-connections linking the fractal elements. Thought can reshape the holographic grid of reality because thoughts are complex geometrical patterns. The crystal will bridge the new pattern to the existing ones. And if the impulse is strong enough, the new pattern will force itself onto the old, and the old will morph into the new. And here's a good example of the corroboration between what Jenhan was saying and what Dr. Marcel Vogel was saying. Dr. Vogel was saying, the mind of man expresses this thought in geometric patterns. These geometric patterns are identical to what we see in the crystallographic world of geometry of mind, and the geometry of the crystallography are identical. What we have found also is that when a thought form is released into space, two things happen. A thought is contained in a geometric pattern, forms in space, causing that space to oscillate. That oscillation, in turn, acts on matter that is in space. I'll try to go through this more rapidly here. The ratio of phi, the golden mean, 1.618, is a ratio that can go into infinity, into the macro and microcosm, and is the basis of the structure of the matrix. There's 21 golden ratios in the pentagon. Our body is made up of, and all life forms. Our DNA has dodecahedral structuring to it. Even the amino acids have, the 20 amino acids are connected to this decahedral structure. You have this pentagonal and hexagonal geometry, and even the distance within angstroms is measured in golden mean ratio. The egg form, the golden mean spiral throughout nature. Even, people believe that the chakras are connected to the geometry. Phi is expressed in the 52-degree angle. Now, when we're saying 52-degree angle, just for brevity, the precise angle is 51.843 degrees, but for brevity, we'll call it 52 degrees. It acts as a transponder in the matrix. Here we're familiar with this very familiar site of the Great Pyramid is at that exact angle. And you can see that there's a golden mean ratio between the tip and the center of halfway on measuring with a 52-degree angle. Quartz crystals, if you measure the angles on all quartz crystals, they're exactly at this 52-degree angle. And the Vesica Pisces, you can see that between the larger and the smaller turns out to be 52 degrees. Dr. Victor Schauberger, who Hitler tried to recruit, he discovered this hyperbolic cone that represents the curvature of space-time. If you were to slice it at a 51.84 degree angle, it gives you a golden mean egg, or 1.618 to 1. That's pretty interesting. Jenhan goes over this ratio. He says this ratio acts as a transponder, as dynamic geometry. Some shapes, because of their proportions, naturally affect the holographic structure of the matrix. We use a specific pyramidal ratio to build our viral generators. That's like life force, chi, viral, different titles. It's like the life force energy that comes from source. Because the geometrical ratio structure of the central crystal in a generator will interface with the pyramidal ratio of the building of the machine harvesting its energy. So I won't go into Marcel Vogel just intuitively, cut one side of the crystal with a 52-degree angle, and the other side is the 60-degree more projecting angle. Angular harmonic resonance, something I'm familiar with because of work I did with radionics. In other words, in a circle, you can tune into everything in the entire universe. On the Delaware camera that could tune backwards and forwards in time, it was a radionic instrument. These dials are like breakdown in increments to be able to fine tune into that resonance that's angularly, harmonically resonating with what you're tuning into. I was in communication with Malcolm Ray in England, who developed 25,000 of these cards that each one had little lines coming in that picked up the magnetic field that was in a box from a little small magnet and could create any substance because it was channeling that aspect of the magnetic field due to this angular resonance. A French professor of physics, Dr. Turine, created this disc that you can measure radiation and energies within a circle. Dr. Marcel Vogel discovered that the intermolecular bonding angles of water, which is 26 degrees, which is 2 times that is 52 degrees, and at 104.5, which half of that is 52.25 degrees. These act like, he always used to say, these are akin to those that we know in normal physics. In other words, in harmonics, say if you have a radio station playing at 100 megahertz, you have a signal that at 200 megahertz, twice the frequency, the same music is going to be playing on those harmonics. And so the information can be transferred. He did an experiment with a crystal with 7 right-hand turns. He was able to convert thousands of gallons of this rot gut wine into a California award-winning wine by putting the essence within the crystal and transferring that into the water, which transformed the wine. In the healing procedures he used, he found that there was a critical rotational angle as you're tuning into, in the healing procedure, going into a person's energetic field, that there's an angle which you resonate with that person's particular DNA frequency. And magic squares, temples are built by that. Cathedrals, is Islam, the art of Islam. They have magic squares everywhere. These angles form a method of resonating with a particular energy, and they have magic squares for all the planets and everything. Universal resonance of quartz and water with the matrix. Jen Han says, the core holographic structure of quartz crystal is the purest material in the universe. It is based on the same core fractal formula than water, and both are interdimensional bridges. Crystals can store data just as water does because it's constructed on the same fractal core formula, but crystals have way more capacities. Of course, they are the most elaborate state of matter, so elaborate it naturally embeds consciousness. A crystal is a bridge because it exists in all dimensions at a time. And here, this hexagonal structure of the lattice structure of quartz is 6-sided. And the Russians did an experiment where they put a glass window, and they had these cultures, and the UV radiation, which is much higher in frequency, one culture was affected by transmitted a disease through a quartz window, but is blocked with the window. And the reason being is that the quartz allows all the frequencies to go through, whereas glass is amorphous. In other words, it's fused together. It doesn't have the lattice structure that quartz does. Water, they both have these core structures. I'm going to play a little short video of Marcel speaking. What they were able to do is get these ice core samples, and then what they found, and these are really deep into Antarctica, they found that all the major classes of crystallography, the 7 major classes, can be formed within water. And it's also interesting to note that water optimally structures at a certain temperature. It's called 98.6 degrees. You might find that interesting as well. So I'm going to play this little clip. Hopefully the okay, I'm just checking. Is the audio coming through?
No, it's not. You might have to, when you reshare, there should be theoretically on the white share box before you click share again, before you click the blue button in the share screen that appears, there's 2 little tick boxes on the bottom left about, you could tick both of them for sharing sound and video quality. See if you can see that on yours. Earlier, somebody else couldn't see it, but.
Got it. Yeah, okay. Here we go. Okay, Marcel is saying I'm assuming it's playing now.
All of the crystallographic forms that we have in nature now, and there are 7 major classes, can be formed in water itself. I repeat this statement carefully to you. Water, in the process of crystallization into ice, will exhibit all of the patterns of the crystallographic world around us. It is the personification in a single bit of matter of all that is. It's a very, very profound and meaningful statement. They have discovered this in the ice in both Antarctica and the Arctic by drilling cores hundreds of thousands of feet and pulling these core samples out and carefully pulling micro plugs under refrigeration of the ice, and they find under the microscope all of the patterns of crystallographic forms that we have in nature. What we have found in our laboratory is that the energy of mind projected through a crystal will structure water just like it was frozen into ice. The remarkable and unique differentiation is that water, when it is structured the way I am talking to you now, with mind and with thought, remains fluid but structured. That type of category is called a liquid crystal, a mesophase, a mesomorphic transition. And I've put now almost 27 years of study into this type of structure. It is organized, it's holding information, and it takes the minutest charge to release it and to come back to its normal water bulk characteristic. We speak of vital water. We speak of holy water. We speak of Lourdes water. We speak of the sacred springs. Each one of these statements I find to be true. When I have studied waters from various sacred locales, I find a structure in that water which is unique from the bulk water. I got a sample of water from a sacred spring in Hungary, and it exhibits a energy level that transcends anything I have seen anywhere. I got a little tiny vial. I take a drop of that water and put it in my reverse osmosis water, and that water immediately has that charge, which was in the original vial.
Yeah, so what he did was took a highly energetic charged drop of the sacred water, put it into the unstructured bulk water, and every single drop in that completely restructured itself. Because if you take a unstructured and put it into a vat of structured water, it won't affect it. As Jenhan was saying, that dissonance cannot attune to an ordered state of geometrical resonance. And so each of us are like a drop in the ocean. Oh, the time's going by here quickly, so I'm going to have to turbo through this. This is actually a 2 or 3 hour presentation I'm trying to cover in a short period of time. But I would like to say, regarding the planetary matrix, I also worked with another scientist by the name of Dr. Robert Beck, who was measuring shamans around the planet and found that independently, they each, when they were in working state of consciousness, their left and right hemispheres, which act as 2 separate brain patterns, became one and amplified, and it linked into what's called the Schumann resonance. And it all turned out which is about 7.83 hertz, which is interesting. So I asked the question of Jenhan, if a planet's brainwave affects the minds, can many minds affect the planet's brainwave? A lot of people just assume that's true, but it's interesting to get confirmation. My question was, is a reciprocal connection between the planet's ionospheric cavity, which resonates signals similar to human brainwaves, and human brainwaves? Dr. Schumann, they were able to measure that. Dr. Robert Beck discovered that it was true. Jenhan came back with his, of course it does. Because in June of this year, Elena and I did based on this information, in order to do something constructive and positive to the timeline on this planet using the crystals with consciousness. We had about 1,700 people live participating on our YouTube channel, where we all did a vision to imprint into each person's crystals a positive timeline into the planetary matrix, and a spike was recorded. My question to Jenhan was, you think it's feasible that the spike was a result of the collective group effort? Something that you do, Aggie, all the time. Jenhan says, of course it had an effect. There is a ratio of population that needs to be gathered to produce a visible disturbance, and you did it that day. The brain waves emitted by all living creatures on this planet are in inter-resonance with the ionospheric shell. If this ionospheric resonance shall change, all life on the planet would be affected. This is a topic I affectionate, particularly because it is part of my work. He's a terraformer of planets, so he understands the incomplete matrix of a planet.
So, excuse me, Dan, someone
Yes.
just pointed out, and they're right. We can't see what you're reading anymore. We're only still seeing the gray screen where the video was playing.
Ah. Oh, no. Okay. How did that happen? Were you able to see the Marcel talking?
We couldn't see him. We could hear him, though.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Okay.
But it was fine to hear him. It took a lot of thought power to comprehend what he was saying anyway, so I closed.
Oh, okay. All right. Can you see this now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Oh, okay. All right. Darn. He's showing graphs and everything. Oh, well. So anyway, I'm just confirming that a being with a understanding of the Earth ionospheric cavity that we know as the Schumann resonance, all of our minds do affect it. And when we go into a high gamma, it's like a higher frequency of the brainwave that when we all work in sync together, especially when amplified with a crystal, it has an effect. I'm going to have to turbo through this spiraling vortex that covers the matrix, resonance of love and beauty at the core of the matrix. You know, Dr. Emoto's work you're familiar with. If you put like, you know, hatred, jealousy or something, it won't form in the matrix because dissonance cannot attune to an ordered state of geometrical resonance. So this substantiates why that happens with Emoto's work. Beauty, you know, we all notice, we all pick a golden mean square over the other ones. People's faces, you know, attractive looking people have golden mean ratios, not to say there's not attractive within. Symmetry versus non-symmetrical, and bodies, you know, you have a distortion here of the body. So our eyes naturally are attuned resonance to this golden mean ratio, as Leonardo da Vinci and others knew. The holographic nature of reality, I'm talking a 1984 show, talking about in the future, they'll be able to have healing with, you know, medbed type of technology. Alex Collier described that, yes, it uses holographic technology where the Andromedans will take a picture of you that goes all the way back to your conception. It will take out slides through time. In other words, you can tune through time and then restructure it onto your body, and it will age reverse you. This is how the secret space program 20 and back people get age reversed. And I was able to substantiate that. And the camera I worked on, I was converting it into 1980s technology that came built back in the 50s, that was patent on the European Patent Office, took thousands of photographs. There's a picture of a fetus that they were able to go backwards and forwards in the time, show the different levels of it. Basically, it creates a hologram in space, and was able to capture it on film. And this is from the patent, and pictures of the inside of the camera, and a spiral that can tune backwards and forwards in the time, and then it reflected the energy back onto the photographic plate. Analysis was done showing there was actually 3-dimensional imaging within the photograph that was taken. And this is based on a presentation Elena and I did, looking at, you know, crystal scrying, lingams in India, druids. We have a druid coming up in the presentation here. Shamans. This I had personal experience with. It's Atlantean crystal that 7 people were connected into this Atlantean pyramid that Dr. Ray Brown discovered. Elena was shown these feral generators that use crystals and attune and bring in the energy. The crystal skull, Michael Hedges' skull, an older adept would come in, and the master would pulse his breath, transfer the mind from his mind into the skull, and then a young initiate would come in and transfer his knowledge from the skull into her. Arcs, Elena can go into that much better. She's actually witnessed them being all these crystals inside that allow it to be physically manifest in multiple dimensions at the same time, these arcs that are all over our planet and our solar system. Amplification, use in the crystal. The crystal Marcel gave as a gift to me for helping him. They started with a 4-sided, and they started going into more sides, which changes the spin of the energy coming through the crystal. acts like a laser. We have one mirror that's 100% reflective, one's 99%, and that 1% that comes out, because of the energy cohering back and forth in phase, is able to cut through steel. You know, it's very powerful. All this was extraterrestrial. And, you know, myself being a broadcast engineer, the matrix of a crystal acts as an amplification. And you can see here in the electromagnetic spectrum, and Marcel used to say is akin to what we know in normal physics. You have phased arrays which amplify the signal, you know, like they do in HARP. Stanford research was able to, in a 3 dimensions, imprint a image of the Mona Lisa into a crystal. Breath. When you pulse your breath, as he found when he was working with the plants, when he was giving a course for creativity engineers, he set up a split leaf philodendron, and he pulsed his breath, and when he burned the leaf, it reacted. And when he thought about burning the leaf, the moment the thought formed in his mind, the plant reacted. And he was able to go all the way to Prague, Czechoslovakia with his colleague and tune into the plant and cause it to react. And he found that he was studying pranayama yoga, where breath was, I'm running out of time here. Applications, and we could maybe at some other time, marcelvogel.org. We discovered there's an eye in the crystal that's created by the vortexes that on both ends that create the singularity point that allow you to modify, like a Merkaba, the planetary matrix. And anyway, I better stop. So anyway, there's so much information to share, and it all corroborates with each other, and it can empower the people of Earth to use these technologies with our conscious power to affect the planetary grid. And marcelvogel.org was the site I put together in honor of him and his research work. And I know it was kind of all over the place and jumping. And I hope somebody got some good information out of all this.
Well, that sounds wonderful. This was interesting. The last thing that you talked about plants reacting to thought. And yes, there is some evidence, scientific evidence, to the fact that plants has intelligence and they know what we think. And for you out there, here is a book, The Secret Life of Plants.
Yes, Marcel's in that book.
Yeah, if you get a hold of this book, it is one that if you get on the second page of it, you're going to have a late night because you can't put it down, because there's so much evidence to that everything is connected. We can talk with plants, we talk with trees, we can communicate with bugs, anything that has life, we can communicate with. And that's what the plants were for in those experiments too.
So true, Aki. And that's what got Marcel into the research in crystals, was plant communication, because you said that squiggle changed his life and he had to find out, and then one thing led to another, and that led to researching the interface of mind with crystals.
Yes. Hey, thank you very much, Dan, for being with us. This was interesting.
I hope it was insightful, and
Yeah.
and it was my honor to share that information.